So, weird question, but how do you think you're going to die? Heart disease? Flesh-eating bacteria? What will be the thing to snatch your fragile soul from its space on this earth? I'd like to think I'll pass away sleeping in a hammock somewhere, but realistically, I'll probably anger a goose, and that'll be it. For Maxine Anderson, the end almost came from a boulder through her bedroom. She escaped unscathed, but her house, well, you'll see. On today's Parks and Landmarks, a lovely river view and near death from above. Right off the bat, I feel I should make a distinction. We are not talking about the house on the rock today. Our main attraction has a similar name, and that's on purpose. It's an homage. But the two houses and their respective rocks are very different in almost every other way. The house on the rock is a unique and absolutely stunning building. It's situated atop the gorgeous hills between Spring Green and Dodgeville, resulting in a commanding view from within and a dramatic silhouette when seen from afar. In contrast, the rock in the house is just a house, one of a few hundred in Fountain City, Wisconsin. Maybe half an hour north of La Crosse, Fountain City overlooks the Mississippi River, and its riverside bluffs are every bit as beautiful as the rock atop which the more famous house was built. But here, instead of accenting houses, the bluffs constrain them. Homes are placed anywhere they can fit between the bluffs and the river, and nowhere is that felt more than on the north end of town. There, the railroad and the Army Corps of Engineers leave room for only one row of houses, tucked beneath the highest and rockiest of the city's bluffs. It was under these bluffs that Maxine Anderson stood one April morning in 1995. She had just left her bedroom for the kitchen when a deafening, thunderous crash nearly knocked her off her feet. The whole house shook, then creaked, then everything was still. Maxine had just escaped being flattened by a 55-ton boulder. It sheared off the bluff above without warning, rolled straight down the hill, and stopped abruptly in the middle of the master bedroom. Remarkably, the rest of the house was in pretty good shape, but unbouldering the back would just be too monumental a task. Besides, who in their right mind would stay in a house that had seemingly just been smited from above? Maxine and her husband Dwight moved soon after. The buyers of the house then set it up as a tourist attraction, a museum and time capsule dedicated to telling the story of one singular event. I love the simplicity of this place. There's no caretaker, nothing to break the immersion. You just walk up, deposit $2 in the toolbox out front, then walk inside. Golden country oldies warble from a small radio as you sink into the shag carpet. The living room, kitchen, and bathroom are yours to explore. The rooms have been cleaned out a bit, the furniture's been moved, but otherwise the house is exactly the same as it was the day the rock came down. Looking around, I'm reminded of my grandparents' house. Many of the interior design choices are things they would have liked, and the house even has the same weather rock that often sat on their kitchen table. This thing is a classic. You all know how the weather rock instructions read. If the rock is warm, it's sunny out. If the rock is wet, it's raining. If the rock destroys a key room of your house, it's time to move. There's no preparing you for how big the rock is. As you open the door to the master bedroom, it fills your view, a single rugged surface stretching up, down, and beyond the foundation's boundary. As you step out into the sort of hallway between the rock and the house, you can peer into the darkness and see a little more of the past. A nightstand still stands. A closet door hangs ajar. Little else remains of what was probably a favorite room, until it became the de facto back door. It's easy to imagine what this place was like back when people still lived here. Standing in the house before the rock, you could probably fool yourself into a false sense of security. Fountain City provides so much evidence of man's dominion over the world. At any time, you can look out of the front window of this house, and you might see a semi going one way, a freight train going the other, and a barge heading up the Mississippi in the distance. And then, when you're distracted, the cliff behind you might drop a bit of itself, a missile just destructive enough to ruin your life. I feel as though I'm repeating myself, but the falling rocks repeat too. The incident that this house now immortalizes happened in 1995, but that wasn't the first time. See this garage right next to the rock in the house? There used to be another house there until April 5th, 1901. In the middle of the night, a 10,000-pound rock freed itself from its bonds and plummeted into the bedroom of a sleeping elderly couple. The man escaped with hardly any injuries, but his wife was simply flattened. It was the sort of gruesome, tragic incident that you would hope would stick in the public's mind. But our collective memory only lasts a generation, maybe two. 94 years later, rock number 2 dropped, and it was just as unexpected. Maybe this time, things will be different. Rock in the house has now been in the public view for nearly 25 years. Very few natural disasters get perfectly preserved. Off the top of my head, the list goes Pompeii, rock in the house. That might be it. Having visited both in person, I can say that rock in the house is just as much worth your time. It's a tourist attraction, but not in any way that cheapens what happened. There's a sense of reverence all these years later for how the Andersons' lives were upended. The people who curate all this could have presented it like a Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Look at this crazy house!
But they didn't. The exhibits are built like pages of a scrapbook, as though this were just another day in the life of a Fountain City family. Though it may be an extreme day, that's not a bad way to look at it. When you've got the Mississippi River across the street, the forces of nature just become a part of life. In Fountain City, the seasons come and go like anywhere else, but when the spring rains come, it may not always be water falling from the sky. You can visit this unique museum any day from roughly 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Just given its track record, maybe don't go in April.